Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My colleague to my left read the provision of the 14th Amendment that says very clearly, all persons born in the U.S. So that is very clear, all persons born in the U.S. But then there's the second part, and subject to the jurisdiction, et cetera. So I did want to get clarification from you, Professor Frost. All of a sudden, the opponents of the plain language of the 14th Amendment suddenly wants to read into the 14th Amendment subject to the complete jurisdiction. Is that a necessary reading of the 14th Amendment?
Those who are looking to rewrite the 14th Amendment often have to literally do that. They have to add the word allegiance, which is not in there. They have to add the word domicile, that is not in there. They have to add the word complete before jurisdiction, which is not in there. The term jurisdiction was clear in 1865. Merriam-Webster's dictionary said it means under the authority of the government. That's a quote from that dictionary. And when they discussed the exceptions, such as for Native Americans, they made the point that Native American tribes were not, quote, subject to U.S. law. Mm-hmm. So that was why they accepted them. That, of course, is not logic that would apply to any other non-citizen or their child.
So I don't think that, frankly, I don't think the court should be asked to read in language that doesn't even exist. I would say the plain meaning of subject to jurisdiction. I mean, but apparently nothing is plain to people who are trying to make another kind of argument. The people who are born in this country, born on our soil, and I think, Ms. Frost, you mentioned there are 255,000 children born on American soil, and I would say that most of them are probably not here because of tourism or birthright tourism or whatever you call it. In fact, I think I heard your testimony that there's little evidence as to how many people come in through the kinds of fraud that we were told. But to the extent that there is fraud, you are saying that there is already a law against this type of so-called gaming of the system.
Yes, there's a regulation on the books, 21 CFR 41.31, that should be enforced, and that would solve the problem of birth tourism, and we wouldn't have to question the citizenship of every other child born in the United States.
So I would say that one should not toss out a constitutional amendment, not to mention the codification of this amendment, based on a circumstance that can be addressed in some other ways without having to throw out basically the constitutional amendment and the codification. And I believe your testimony was that the president cannot seek to change the law through executive order.
Yes, and I would say President Trump recognizes that. He doesn't claim to be rewriting the Citizenship Clause. He claims to be restoring it. That's the word he used. And adopting an interpretation that at no point in history has ever been adopted by any executive branch official. So it's a novel interpretation, but he claims that he's restoring the meaning.
To some of us, that is not a restoring, that is undoing the meaning of the 14th Amendment as it has been interpreted for 100 years or so. So once again, this is a regime that has a antithetical to immigrants, and they would try to get rid of immigrants in any way possible, including immigrants who became citizens by virtue of being born. But they weren't immigrants, they weren't even born. They became U.S. citizens by virtue of being born in our country. The impact of this kind of interpretation could affect millions of, if there is retroactive application, which there's nothing in the executive order or anything that the Supreme Court may deem that would say that that this kind of reinterpretation cannot be applied retroactively. So there would be millions of U.S. citizens who could be denied citizenship as a result. Isn't that right?
That's correct. And in fact, the Trump administration, the executive order itself just says this is the interpretation. It's absolutely retroactive. And then it recognizes that in its brief as well.
If you are denied citizenship and if the regime gets its way with the SAVE Act, which would require proof of citizenship in order to vote, does that mean that millions of people in our country who are citizens by virtue of being born in this country would be denied the right to vote?
yes, they'd be denied all the rights of citizenship, including their right to vote or serve in public office or serve on a jury.
So this kind of interpretation of the 14th Amendment and the codification thereof would lead to utter chaos, in my view. And if there is already another way to deal with the fraud that we are told is going on, then I think that is there is an appropriate way to deal with the fraud without totally undoing the constitutional protections that people rely on, millions rely on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.